What if the only person who could save a dying farm was a man nobody trusted? Picture this. A woman arrives by stagecoach to a land she's never seen, to marry a man she's never met. And she steps off that coach to find out he's already dead. The farm is bankrupt. The bank is circling. The neighbors want the land. And the only soul willing to help her is a drifter with no name on record and a past he doesn't talk about. This is a story about the kind of courage it takes to start over in a place that doesn't want you. About the kind of man who hides his honor behind silence. And about the one moment when everything, the land, the life, the truth, comes down to a single decision made in the dust. Stay with me, because before this story ends, you're going to find out what that drifter was really running from. The year was 1883. The train had been rolling for 4 days and 3 nights when Clara Morse pressed her forehead against the cold glass of the passenger car window and watched Kansas flatten itself out before her. No hills, no forests, just sky and brown grass and the occasional skeleton of a windmill turning slow against the wind. She had a letter in her coat pocket. She'd read it so many times the paper was soft at the folds. It was from a man named Thomas Aldrich, a widowed farmer in Millhaven, Kansas, who had placed an ad in a Chicago paper looking for a wife with practical skills and no fear of hard work. Clara had answered it. She had practical skills. She had no fear. What she did not have was any way of knowing that Thomas Aldrich had died of a fever 6 weeks before she stepped off that stagecoach in Millhaven. The man who met her at the depot wasn't Thomas. It was a banker named Randolph Cook. He wore a coat that was too clean for the dust around him and a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. "Miss Morse," he said, and he held out a hand. "I'm afraid I have some difficult news." She didn't cry. She would not let him see that. She took the news like she'd taken hard winters in Chicago, with her jaw set and her hands still. Thomas Aldrich had died. He'd left behind 47 acres of farmland, a 2-room house with a leaking roof, a mule named Chester, and debts. A lot of debts. Cook's bank held the note. She had, he explained, smoothing his lapel, 60 days to settle the debt or vacate the property. "And what exactly," Clara asked, "is the amount?" He told her. She blinked once. Didn't move. "I'll need to see the farm," she said. Cook blinked back. He had clearly expected weeping, or a return ticket east. Not this. "Of course," he said. The farm was worse than she expected. The roof did leak. The well was low. 2 of the fence lines had come down, and the fields hadn't been properly worked in what looked like at least 1 season, maybe 2. Chester the mule regarded her from across a broken fence with the specific expression of an animal who has also given up. She stood in the doorway of that 2-room house and made herself look at all of it, every broken piece of it. And she thought, I have been in worse situations than this. She was not sure that was entirely true, but she thought it anyway. That first night, she found a man asleep in the barn. Not inside it, beside it. He was stretched out along the outer wall with his hat over his face and a bedroll under him, like he'd simply decided that wall was the best place in the county to sleep. He had a rifle within reach and a horse tied to a fence post 20 feet away. The horse looked better fed than he did. She stood there with a lantern in one hand and a cast iron skillet in the other, which she realized, in hindsight, was either a brilliant choice or a completely useless one, depending on how this went. "You on my property?" she asked. The hat lifted from his face. The man was somewhere in his 30s, with the kind of face that the sun had gotten to. Weathered, quiet, with eyes the color of creek water. He sat up slowly, like he had all the time in the world and wasn't afraid of the skillet at all. "I was helping Thomas," he said. "Did fence work for him. Came back to finish the job." He looked at the skillet. "I'm not trouble, ma'am." "Most men who aren't trouble," Clara said, "don't sleep next to strangers' barns." He almost smiled. Almost. His name, he said, was Eli. Just Eli. He asked for nothing. He explained, in a handful of sentences, that he had been drifting through the territory for the better part of 2 years doing seasonal work. Thomas had been fair to him. He'd come back because he'd said he would, and he hadn't known the man was dead. She had no reason to trust him. She let him stay in the barn. Here's the thing nobody tells you about the frontier. The loneliness is the loudest part. Not the wind, not the work, the loneliness. You can be surrounded by open land in every direction and feel like the walls are closing in because there is no one to say your name back to you. Clara was not a woman who needed someone to say her name back to her, but she noticed in those first 12 days that Eli said very little, and yet nothing on that farm fell apart that he didn't quietly fix. The fence lines went back up. The well mechanism got repaired. Chester, somehow, was no longer dejected. She watched him work, the way you watch something you don't fully understand yet. He didn't explain himself. Didn't ask questions he didn't need answers to. Cooked simple food without comment. At sundown, he would sit outside the barn and clean his rifle with the specific focus of a man who needs something to do with his hands. She asked him once where he was from. "East," he said. She waited. "A long time ago," he added, and went back to the rifle. On the 14th day, Cook came back. He arrived with 2 men who were not bankers, who had the particular stillness of men paid to be still until they aren't. He stood in the yard and looked at the repaired fences and the worked fields, and Clara in her work clothes, and Eli behind her, and something shifted in his expression. Just slightly. "Miss Morse," he said, "I came to discuss the matter of the note." "I have 46 days left," she said. "Come back at the end of them." Cook studied her. His eyes moved to Eli. "Friend of yours?" "Worker," she said. He left, but the 2 men he'd brought lingered at the edge of the property a moment longer than they needed to, and one of them looked at Eli in a way that was specific and not accidental. That night, Clara brought 2 cups of coffee out to the barn and sat on a hay bale and said, "Who are those men to you?" Eli was quiet for long enough that she thought he wouldn't answer. "I knew one of them," he said finally. "Back in Missouri, before." "Before what?" He looked at his cup. "Before I stopped being the kind of man I was then." Clara sat with that. She was not a woman who pushed, but she was also not a woman who let things sit in her chest without turning them over. "Were you the law?" she asked. "No," he said. She nodded slowly. "Were you the other thing?" He was quiet again. Then, for a time, she got up, picked up her cup, went to the door. "Get some sleep," she said. "We've got 46 days of work ahead of us, and I need you functional. Now I need you to do one thing before we get to the part that changes everything. Hit that subscribe button right now, because we're about to reach the part of this story where Clara and Eli are going to find out what Cook is really after. And trust me, it is not just the farm. So subscribe, hit the bell, and let's keep going. The 32nd day brought rain, which was good for the fields and bad for the roof, which had once again begun its personal war against the ceiling. Clara was on the roof with a hammer when Eli came out of the south field and stopped in the yard below and looked up at her like she had done something mildly alarming. "You're on the roof," he said. "Observant," she said, and drove a nail. He was up beside her 3 minutes later with a better patch kit, and without having been asked. They worked in the rain without talking, the kind of silence that had stopped feeling empty somewhere around day 17. At one point, their hands reached for the same patch of shingle, and she didn't pull back. He didn't either. They both looked at the roof. "Eli," she said. Clara, he said. And that was all that. They kept working. It was on the 38th day that things stopped being about fences and debt. A neighboring farmer named Garrett, a wide-shouldered man with land to the west, came by the farm while Eli was in town for supplies. He sat at her table without being invited and placed his hands on it and told her, plainly, that Cook had promised him he'd have her land by the end of the month. "He's been buying up this whole stretch," Garrett said. He wasn't gloating. He seemed, if anything, faintly ashamed of what he was telling her. "Railroads coming through. Anybody with land in this corridor stands to make a lot of money. Cook wants to be the one who makes it, not you." Clara's hands were very still in her lap. "He inflated the debt," she said. It wasn't a question. Garrett looked at the table. "I don't know the specifics. I know Thomas didn't owe what they're saying he owed." After he left, Clara sat there and did not move for a long time. When Eli came back from town, she told him everything. He listened with his arms crossed and his face still. When she finished, he went to his saddlebag and took out a folded piece of paper and handed it to her. "Thomas gave me this," he said. "Last summer. Said if anything ever happened to him, give it to someone who could use it."
Thank you.
She unfolded it. It was a receipt. Thomas Aldrich's handwriting, dated 14 months ago. A loan repayment to Cook's bank for a sum that accounted for the majority of what Cook now claimed was outstanding. Paid. Stamped. Signed. Clara looked at it for a long time. "You've been carrying this," she said. "I didn't know what it was for yet," he said. "Now I do." What would you do with that piece of paper? Would you go straight to the law? Take it to the bank and call Cook out directly? Think about it. And drop your answer in the comments. Because what Clara did next is not what most people would expect. She did not go to the law first. She went to Garrett. She asked him, quietly, without drama, if he would be willing to speak to what he knew. Not in court. Not officially. Just, would he stand behind what he'd told her? He looked at her for a long time. "My family's got land in that corridor too," he said. "I know," she said. "That's why I came to you." It took him about 10 seconds to make a decision that would shape the next 2 years of his life. "Yes," he said. The 44th day. Cook came with papers and a lawyer and an assumption. He did not expect to find Clara at the table with a county land records clerk, a letter from a Kansas City attorney, a paid receipt, a sworn statement from Garrett, and Eli standing in the corner of the room with his arms folded, and the specific stillness of a man who has dealt with worse rooms than this. Cook looked at all of it. He looked at Eli last. "I know you," he said quietly. "You know who I used to be," Eli said. "That man's been gone a while." The lawyer Cook brought was a practical man. He read the receipt. He read Garrett's statement. He looked at Cook, and he said quietly that he thought they should step outside and reconsider their position. They stepped outside. They did not come back with the same offer. By the 60th day, the debt had been legally reduced to the actual outstanding amount, which Clara paid in full with the savings she had carried from Chicago and 14 days of accounting help from the county records office, which found 2 additional irregularities in Cook's ledgers that were, as the clerk put it, a matter of significant interest to the county. Randolph Cook did not lose everything that winter, but he lost enough, and he lost the corridor land deal, and he did not look at Clara Morse's fence line again after that. The morning after the 60th day, Eli packed his saddlebag. Clara watched him from the porch. She had known it was coming. She had known it from the first night. Probably from the way he slept beside walls instead of inside them, from the way his eyes always found the exits in a room. He was not a man built for staying. He had been built, somewhere along the way, for the specific purpose of moving.
Good morning, John.
"Eli," she said. He looked at her from across the yard. "You don't have to go," she said. He was quiet for a moment. Then, there's a thing I need to settle. Back east, a thing I've been putting off. She nodded. She believed him. She also believed that settling a thing and coming back were not mutually exclusive, and she thought maybe he was starting to believe that too, from the way he looked at her. "Chester will miss you," she said. He almost smiled. The real version this time, not the almost. "Chester's a mule," he said. "Chester doesn't miss anybody." "Chester was depressed for 2 weeks before you fixed him," she said. "He had opinions." Eli laughed then, a real laugh, quiet and surprised, like he'd forgotten for a moment what his own laugh sounded like. He mounted his horse, settled his hat, looked at the farm, the repaired fences, the worked fields, the patched roof, the stubborn woman standing on the porch who had taken a dead man's land and a stranger's help and turned it into something worth keeping. "Clara," he said. "Eli," she said. He turned the horse east and rode. She watched until he was a shape against the sky, and then a smaller shape, and then nothing at all. Then she turned around and went back inside and put the kettle on, because there was work to do. Some stories end with reunions. Some end with settlements and signed papers, and justice done the long, slow way. This one ends with a woman alone on a farm that is hers, legally, fully, entirely hers, and a man riding east towards something he's been avoiding for years. Whether he came back is a question the land doesn't answer. The land just holds the shape of everything that happened on it. The fixed fences, the worked fields, the repaired roof. Chester, standing in a pasture that's no longer failing, looking at the horizon with the particular expression of a mule who has witnessed something and is not saying what. What we do know is this. Clara Morse planted that first real season with 47 acres, a mule, and the piece of paper that changed everything. She kept Thomas Aldrich's receipt framed on the wall, not out of bitterness, out of memory, out of the understanding that evidence and persistence and one person willing to stand behind you can sometimes be enough. And out on the trail somewhere east, a man named Eli rode with a little less weight on his shoulders than he'd started with, and a laugh he'd almost forgotten living somewhere in his chest again. What do you think? Did Eli come back? Drop your answer in the comments. These stories move because of the people watching them, and I read every single response. This film and its story were developed through artificial intelligence technology as an independent artistic project, created for the purpose of entertainment and meaningful storytelling. The characters, locations, events, and situations depicted here are entirely fictional and products of creative imagination. This is not a historical document. For historical information about the American frontier period, please consult academic and archival sources. Thank you for watching and for giving these stories a place to live.